So Java 14 is here, which brings us some exciting new language features and some features which are in preview, along with multiple Java API updates and general JVM improvements. So in this video, we are going to look at all these features along with some source code examples. So let's get started. If you want to have a look at the written version of this tutorial, you can check the first link in the description section where you can go through the article at your own pace, and you can also get access to the source code for this tutorial. So first I'm going to start with a very interesting feature in Java 14, which is improving the description of null pointer exception. We all know as Java developers how irritating null pointer exception is. It's not so clear at which part of your code we are getting this particular null pointer exception. So from Java 14, the compiler exactly points out which variable has a null reference. So if you look at this example, it is pretty clear that there will be a null pointer exception. In fact, the IDE already warns you that this code throws a null pointer exception. But when you run this code before Java 14, you just get a normal null pointer exception message. But from Java 14, by just adding a flag to the Java compiler called show code details in exception messages, you can see this nice description called cannot invoke string.uppercase because A is null. So let's go ahead and look at the code examples for this feature. As I mentioned before, you can download the source code from the blog article, which is the first link in the description section. I'm using IntelliJ 2020.1 version, which supports the language and preview features of Java 14. So after installing IntelliJ, go to project structure and make sure to enable Java 14 features inside your IDE. I'm going to open the class nullPointerExceptionDemo and run the class. And of course it fails with an old null pointer exception message. So to get the detailed exception message, click on the drop down button on the top right corner of your IDE and click on edit configurations. Inside the VM options, add the following flag, which is the show details in exception message, which is show code details in exception message. This flag will be provided to the Java compiler, which enables this exception message whenever we receive a null pointer exception. So next we have switch expressions, which is the new standard language feature in Java 14. This was initially introduced as a preview feature in Java 12 and also in Java 13. Before knowing more about switch expressions, first let's have a look at old switch statements, where we have a switch which takes in a value, and inside this block we have multiple case declarations, and based on the sport we are providing as input, we will assign a value to the best player field. In the new switch expressions, we have the chance to return a variable directly from the switch. So for that, instead of a return keyword, we can directly use arrow functions inside the switch block. So if an input value is matching a particular case, this value will be returned immediately from the switch block and will be stored inside the best player field. We also have the possibility to execute multiple lines of code for every case declaration. In that case, we will use a code block, and to return from that block, we will use a keyword called as yield, which returns the value from the switch expression. Now let's go ahead and have a look at the code examples for this feature. Let's open the switch expression demo class, and inside this class we have this old switch statement code. So let's refactor it to use the new switch expressions. As we are using an IDE, refactoring this piece of code is very easy. I can just hover over the switch statement and select the change to switch expression option, and our amazing IntelliJ will change the code to switch expressions. As we saw before, this code is using arrow functions and returning the value back to the best player field. So now let's introduce a code block inside the first case statement. Let's print some random text here using the systemoutprintln method. And after that, I'm going to type yield and return the value xxx. So let's run the class and let's check whether it's printing the value we are expecting or not. Okay, now let's discuss the next topic, which is the preview features which are introduced in Java 14. The first preview feature we are going to have a look at is the pattern matching for instance of operator. So normally when you are dealing with the type object, which is from the java.lang package, we will cast it to our required type by first checking its type using the instance of keyword, and then we will cast the object to our required type with this, and then we will cast the object. With the pattern matching feature, we don't need to cast the object explicitly, we just have to provide the corresponding variable along with the type to the instance of check, and the variable will be bound to the casted value. If we quickly go to the pattern matching demo class, you can see that we are not casting the object reference variable to string. And if we run this program, we will see the text Java 14 is here in uppercase. The next feature here is text blocks, which is released as a preview feature for the second time. This was originally introduced in Java 13. With text blocks, we get to declare multi-line strings in Java without using the string concatenations. When we want to store any HTML, JavaScript, or SQL code inside strings in Java, we have to manually use the string concatenations to construct them. With text blocks, we can just put our multi-line strings inside the triple double quotes, and the indentation of the string will be preserved by Java. The change in Java 14 is we can now add a trailing slash to one of the lines inside the multi-line string, which tells the Java compiler to ignore the next coming line break. So in this screenshot, when we print the string Java 14, it will print the value like the one you see in this image. The next one is not really a preview feature, but a new tool which is now in incubator phase. The name of this tool is called as JPackage. So this tool mainly creates the platform specific installers out of the jar files. So we all know that installing Java on the machine is a prerequisite whenever we want to run any Java application. With the help of JPackage, now there is no need to install Java on the client's machine to run the Java applications. Based on the type of OS and the JDK variants we are using, if you're using the Windows OS, you can generate MSI and exe files. And if you're on Linux, you can generate RPM and Debian packages. And on Mac, you can generate the dpackage format files. So next up, we have a very interesting addition to Java 14. It's called as records. Records are similar to the data classes in Kotlin. If you're already aware of Kotlin, they can be called as a restricted and enhanced version of our POJO classes in Java. If you want to write a POJO class in Java, usually you need to write a lot of boilerplate code. Usually we will use your IDE or any code generation library like Lombok to generate the code like constructors, getters and setters, equals and hash code, and toString methods. In records, we don't have to write any of those boilerplate code. All you need to do is to declare the type as record and declare the needed fields as the arguments. Personally, I like this feature a lot, so let's jump into the code and see how this works. So I have an employee class which contains some private fields, constructors, equals and hash code, and toString methods which are auto-generated. And the very same functionality can be achieved through this employee record, which just contains the necessary field information. I created a class called as records demo where we have 3 employee records which contains different employee details. And notice that to access the fields, there is no need to write the getter method inside the records. You can just access the first name using the accessor method, which has the same name as the field. Another interesting thing about records is we do not have setter methods. So we can say that records usually encourages immutability. Moving along, we are also comparing the employee record object with the employee record 2 and 3 objects, and they print true and false in each case. The last block of code demonstrates the implementation of the hash code method inside the records. Let's run this application and see the output. So you're able to see the first name and last name of the employee record and employee 3 record objects. And we also see the result of the equals and hash code method calls. Now let's have a look at some Java API updates. If you're using some of these removed Java APIs inside your source code, you may have to refactor them out before migrating to Java 14. Let's have a look at the removed APIs first. The first one is package java.security.acl. This package and all the types under this package are removed from Java 14. From the package java.util.char, the pack200 compression tools and APIs are removed. This legacy compression technology and the API were already deprecated in Java 11. You can read more about this at the Java Enhancement Proposals 367. Next, we will check the APIs which are deprecated for removal. The first one is thread.resume and thread.suspend methods. Both of these are deprecated long back in Java, but in this version, they are deprecated to be removed in the future releases. Now let's check the APIs which are added in this version. There is a new method inside the printStream class called as writeBytes, which takes the incoming byte array and writes them to the stream. Previously, this was handled through the write method, which takes in the byte array and integer values for offset and length. Next, there is a new annotation called as serial. This annotation type is intended to allow compile time checking of serialization related declarations. This is similar to the checking which is enabled by the @override annotation when you are actually overriding a method. To enable these checks, you have to add EXLENT serial flag to the compiler. Now let's take a look at the general JVM improvements we have in Java 14. So we have some garbage collector improvements as part of this release, and also some improvements in the Java flight recorder. So JFR now supports event streaming. Let's take a look at each one of them now. The first one is the improvements for Gwen garbage collector. This is the default garbage collector in Java, which was introduced in Java 9. And in Java 14, this garbage collector has been made NUMA aware, where NUMA stands for non-uniform memory access. The goal of this improvement is to improve the performance of the garbage collector on large machines. This feature can be enabled by adding the use NUMA flag to the Java compiler. The next improvement is for Z garbage collector or Z garbage collector, depends on how you pronounce it, which is introduced in Java 11, and in Java 14, the pause times of the garbage collector has been reduced to under 10 milliseconds. This was originally available only for Linux, but with Java 14, there are ports available for Windows as well as macOS. You can read more about this from the Java Enhancement Proposal, JEP 364 and 365. So the next one is the CMS garbage collector, where CMS stands for Concurrent Mark Sweep, which is completely removed from Java 14. The last improvement we are going to have a look at this video is the Java Flight Recorder's event streaming functionality. If you are not aware of what is Java Flight Recorder, this is a tool which allows us to collect metrics and profile data about the running Java applications. With Java 14, JFR supports event streaming, which allows us to get real-time insights into the JVM without the need to dump the events and pass them manually. This is really helpful in the continuous monitoring setups. You can read more about it at Java Enhancement Proposal 349. If you want to know more about the Java Enhancement Proposals, you can have a look at the OpenJDK Java 14 Futures page. If you have learned something watching this video, please don't forget to like and share this video, and also subscribe to my channel for more interesting tutorials like this. Until then, stay safe and happy coding techies.